you ever entered a place that felt different? Not dangerous, not haunted, just thinner somehow? A hallway that felt too quiet? A forest that seemed to absorb sound? A hotel corridor at 2 a.m. that felt suspended outside normal reality? You tell yourself it is imagination, fatigue, memory, psychology. But ancient cultures across the world described these places long before modern language existed. They called them thin places, locations where the veil between worlds becomes weak. Welcome to Mysterious Encounter. Tonight, we open the first recovered file, a study of the thin places, the locations where reality itself appears unstable, and something beyond ordinary perception feels strangely close. The concept of thin places appears across civilizations separated by oceans and centuries. The Celts believed certain coastlines, hills, and ruins existed at the edge of two worlds. Desert mystics spoke of locations where visions became stronger. Ancient pilgrims traveled enormous distances to stand inside caves, mountains, temples, and forests, believed to contain unusual spiritual presence. These places shared strange patterns, silence, isolation, altered emotional states, intensified dreams, feelings of timelessness, heightened intuition. People often describe the same sensation, that reality itself felt slightly less solid there, not broken, just thinner. Modern culture dismisses this as superstition, but the consistency is difficult to ignore. How did disconnected civilizations repeatedly arrive at nearly identical descriptions of certain environments? And why do many people still experience these sensations today, without knowing the ancient terminology at all? Thin places are not always ancient forests or sacred ruins. Sometimes they are ordinary spaces, airports late at night, empty schools during summer, parking garages after midnight, hospital corridors, deserted malls, stairwells, long hotel hallways, places that feel emotionally suspended. Modern psychology calls these liminal spaces, threshold environments existing between destinations, not here, not there. The human mind depends on stable context to maintain certainty. Liminal spaces disrupt that certainty. They remove noise, social reinforcement, routine identity, familiar emotional anchors. And in that absence, something strange begins to surface. People report déjà vu, derealization, distorted time perception, heightened memory recall, irrational fear, sudden emotional intensity, as though the mind itself briefly loses its normal grip on reality. One of the strangest aspects of thin places is their connection to memory. Certain locations seem capable of unlocking emotions and recollections buried for years. A smell, a hallway, a sound, a certain kind of light. Suddenly, forgotten memories return with unusual force. Why? Neuroscience suggests memory is deeply tied to environmental context. But some researchers believe something stranger may be happening. What if consciousness itself is partially spatial? What if certain places contain stronger emotional residue than others? Ancient traditions believed memory could linger within landscapes, not metaphorically, literally. A battlefield remembers violence, a temple remembers prayer, a childhood home remembers identity. Perhaps thin places feel emotionally charged because they contain layers of accumulated human experience bleeding through the surface of ordinary perception. And perhaps that is why some locations feel impossibly heavy, while others feel almost sacred. There is another possibility. What if the human brain does not create consciousness, but filters it? Several philosophers and researchers have proposed this idea for over a century. Under normal conditions, the brain narrows reality into a manageable experience. It filters information, perception, sensory overload, subconscious awareness. But certain conditions may weaken the filter: isolation, silence, grief, exhaustion, ritual, meditation, darkness. Liminal environments. Thin places may not contain something supernatural. They may simply reduce the strength of the filter itself. For brief moments, people report sensing something larger behind ordinary reality. Not clearly, only partially, like seeing movement behind frosted glass. This would explain why thin places often feel impossible to describe. Language itself struggles there. The experience is emotional first, conceptual second. Modern civilization is designed to eliminate thin places, constant light, constant stimulation, constant noise, constant scrolling. The machine fears silence because silence reveals. A person sitting alone beside dark water long enough begins noticing things, not monsters, patterns, memory, emotion, existential awareness, the strange depth beneath ordinary life. Thin places become easier to perceive when distraction disappears. Perhaps this is why modern systems work so aggressively to prevent stillness. Because stillness weakens conditioning, and once the veil begins thinning, people start questioning the architecture around them, the pace, the noise, the artificial urgency. The machine depends on attention remaining trapped at the surface. Thin places pull attention downward. Perhaps the veil was never meant to separate worlds. Perhaps it separates states of perception. And thin places are the rare locations where the filter briefly weakens, allowing humanity to remember something ancient beneath ordinary reality. That reality is deeper than productivity, deeper than identity, deeper than routine. Most people encounter thin places accidentally. A silent road at night, a forgotten building, a coastline under moonlight. For a moment, the world feels strangely alive, strangely aware. Then the feeling fades. But those who experience it never fully forget, because once you notice the veil, you begin noticing how often reality trembles at the edges, and sometimes you begin wondering what might be looking back through the opening. Next time on the Veil Archives, there are people who claim certain dreams are not dreams at all. Shared locations, repeated symbols, identical figures appearing across unrelated minds, the next recovered file, the dream beneath the dream.